So let me see if we got a timer on here so we can. Okay, we live. I need to know if we got a timer or anything. It's all right. Let me see.
Let's see.
All right. Okay. Like I wish. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can use this the internet to kind of watch what I'm looking at. This is kind of a streaming them. This is kind of a this is interesting. Let me see. Let's see if I can actually see us doing it, if we're doing it or not. Okay, yeah. It is streaming live now. Let me go ahead and click it. And we can get this showboat on the road. This is tight. All right then. For all of those who are sitting here or who would be watching this, terribly sorry.
It's always round one.
Yeah. But you can't get nowhere unless you do it right. Unless you try.
Yeah, you gotta give it a shot.
What the hell? Oh Lord. It's a Stokes commercial. Golly. So this is how you do the moderator thing. Okay. Like I said, just learn how to do this.
It's always fun.
I do appreciate you taking the time out to sit here and work with me on this.
No problem. This is always fun. In fact, I wanted to do podcasting a few years ago and just really never got into the niche of doing it, although I had the stuff to do it. I bought a camera, I got the microphone, and just never sat down and did it.
Sweet. It is up. It's probably delayed by like 20 seconds, but let's go ahead and get into this. All right, what's going on, guys? Terribly sorry for the little glitches and the little delay and everything. This is our first time coming on the channel and doing a Google Hangout and live streaming and everything, and it has definitely been an experience. All right, then. So for y'all who don't know, my name is Narik Chase. I do the Narik Chase channel. We sit here, we talk about movies, video games, books, television shows, anime. We just dive right into media and pop culture, and we do love it. Now, today on this session, I'm going to be having a Marvel versus DC discussion, and I have a guest star with me, Mr. Ken Phillips.
How's it going?
Would you like to say the words?
It's going. We're going to have a good time tonight, I think, and learning this Marvel and DC.
Now, what honestly, this is the age-old question. You know, people have been debating about this for the longest. Honestly, what are your impressions on the whole argument between Marvel and DC?
Most of the comics I read to start with were more of your classic DC comics. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, several other little publications that they had. And I would say probably as time progressed, I still favor Batman, don't get me wrong. But
yeah,
in the last few years, we've seen DC trying to push to get their movies out, but Marvel is just dominating them. And most people can really more relate to except for your classic characters, like your Justice League characters, you know, the original Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And most kids growing up, or at least in my case, I'm a little bit older than you, but I used to watch, you know, Justice League and all those all the time.
Yes.
And that's what you saw. You saw the core characters always on TV, but you know, later on in life, you start seeing Stan Lee get in there and bringing in your Spider-Man, your other characters from the Marvel Universe started bleeding in there. And over the last, I would say at least, well, definitely over the last 5 years, but say within the last 10 years, you have seen the Marvel world just rise up and bring all their characters to life. And to me, it was awesome to see all these characters in a human form instead of just an animated TV series or, like a little movie here and there. Like, we go back and look at the Fantastic Four, the 1970 and the 1984 movies, and they're really hokey.
Yeah.
And now you get CGI, big budget graphics, and like a lot of the, like say George Lucas, when he was talking about making Star Wars, he made state-of-the-art movies with what was available at the time, but they envisioned seeing more. They wanted to bring more, but it wasn't practical to create these characters and bring them to life. And so now you have all this computing power, you have all these stories now, and you've had kids who don't even know who half these characters are. They may have seen them, but they don't know who they are. And for us, we grew up with these characters. I mean, who wanted to be Iron Man? Who wanted to be Batman? Who wanted to be Superman? You didn't see a lot of that. And now you're seeing, I'm walking around the mall seeing like little Thors walking around and stuff, just dressed up for fun. So you're seeing that rise, and say right now, Marvel's taking that lead. Marvel's got that lead in hand. I mean, they're pushing movies more often. They're bringing out a lot of their core characters. DC's trying to play catch up, but DC typically has been a lot darker in the storyline. Where
I definitely agree with that.
Because if you read, Dark Knight, some of the Namor and other series, those characters, they were very brooding characters, very tough characters, rough worlds, always fighting. Where Marvel was more like, they had problems, but hey, we're having fun doing it. And that's why I think a lot of people are striving. I mean, we're seeing them, they're not trying to be edgy. They're just kind of bringing those characters out to us in a way that we can enjoy them, have fun with them. The humor, watching the Hulk smash Loki into the ground and say puny God. I mean, come on. I remember watching the original Hulk series, and it was really, there wasn't that much violence in the original Hulk series, but it's been very interesting in watching this going. And I say Marvel's going to keep on it for a while. We've got Guardians 2 coming out soon, Doctor Strange. Obscure to a lot of people, obscure character, Doctor Strange. They don't even really know who he is. And if
I will admit, a lot of the characters that were in the movies, I never really cared about before the movies actually came out, which I think also helps to make them more pronounced. Which I do like the fact that Marvel is doing that.
Yes, they're bringing out Black Panther, a prime example. I remember reading about Black Panther. I've seen a few, comic series, but really never saw that character come out. I knew they were there, but it was Black Panther. And now you have him as a key character. He's coming out in his own movie in 2 years, I believe. And I have the Marvel list in front of me, but roughly 2 years, you're going to have a Black Panther dedicated movie. Black Widow. Who the heck is Black Widow? Never heard of her. Boom. There you go. Black Widow.
Same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. I remember a lot of my friends, nobody even heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I remember seeing the comics vaguely, just, and I probably have one or two in my collection somewhere, but who? Was exactly what it was. Who the heck is Guardians of the Galaxy? So, like I say,
so as far as live action movies are concerned, we could say Marvel is leading.
Absolutely, right now they are.
Let me ask you this: do you think the reason why they're leading is because they're connecting all of their movies? Well, not the not the X-Men, not Blade, not Fantastic Four yet, or in that sense. But as far as Captain America, you think that's what's making it so prominent? Whereas in, the DC hasn't started. Aside from Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, and Batman versus Superman, they never connected their movies.
No, they didn't. They were all independent, their own storylines. Batman's gone through several versions, several characters, and only until Suicide Squad, Batman versus Superman, did you actually start seeing the formation, like especially Batman versus Superman, basically was the core set of your JLA characters, your Justice League of America. And when you see the next set of movies, you're going to start seeing DC putting their stuff together, where you start seeing the Flash and Cyborg join up. And then, of course, you got your original core Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman together. But I think most people are still latching onto, again, Marvel in the lead with this. You started with Captain America, then you started adding the Avengers, just like the comics. You had all these individual little pieces, and they put them all together. And I think that's where people are grabbing on. People are latching on to, okay, we know Superman, Superman, but in the Marvel series, we're getting all these characters together, which are mostly right now, again, the core Avengers, which is basically your DC's Justice League. So, but everybody can relate to them. I mean, they're piecing them. You get little pieces every little movie. And I think also the thing that they lead into is at the end of each movie, they have those little snippets for you. You know, what's coming up next.
Yeah.
You know, who are we going to see? You know, you might get a Guardians of the Galaxy or a little introduction to the next movie. Something that just hooks you and keeps you on there and says, okay, I can't wait to see it. So, yes, Marvel in this case has got the lead in that.
Okay, so as far as the live action movies are concerned, Marvel is definitely taking it.
Oh, yes. And they're relating their products and their movies together. I think that's what's keeping their audiences together. And keeping them attuned, you know, like everybody's watching. What's the next one kind of happen? So, but I think I'm looking more for the.
I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. Because, you know, you're right. I think because of how they connect the movies, and this is something we'll touch on later on, but how they connect the movies to the series and how the series connect too. And it's just one big thing,
and it creates their universe.
I think that's definitely what's pushing it. So, do you think? Okay, in DC's, I'm not saying that DC is trying to play against Marvel on this, but do you think DC should have done it that way? Started off with all of the characters individually and made a movie. And pretty much, it's kind of starting it backwards. They're forming a team, and then they're going to tell the people stories, the individual character stories.
Well, we had Superman, we had Batman, separate stories, and then we have a Wonder Woman separate story coming. But after we've seen her in Batman versus Superman, which is what their first tie-in is together, you know, I don't think they're doing it backwards. I think they've just been too slow about it. Because, like I said, we saw the Marvel movies with Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, again, some of your key characters in the Avengers, and they also had kind of their single story, but they were still somewhat tied into the Marvel universe that you knew, and you knew was forthcoming, and even some of them had a little bit of a crossover here and there. Whereas with the DC universe that we've seen several separate movies, a hinkling of a together movie in Batman versus Superman, but not quite all together. I mean, you see an introduction of Aquaman briefly, you see an introduction of the Flash briefly, and then if you have seen a trailer for Justice League, a precursor trailer for Justice League, you see the formation of them together. And I think they just took it slow. They took it way slow versus where the Marvel just jumped up and just started adding everybody together to build it quickly and coherently, and in this case, it's paying off for them. DC is going to be playing catch up on this, but I hope that their storylines in the DC world, we know that they're always going to be a little bit darker. Suicide Squad was it had its humor.
It was fun, but it was dark.
Yes, it was a very dark styled movie, what you're not accustomed to seeing in the Marvel world. So, and I think they're going to carry on with that in the new series. I mean, the Justice League trailer that just came out about a month ago, or actually about 3 weeks ago, still has some of that humor in it. But overall, you're seeing still a darker style of movie, which I really would like. I would like to see him really flesh out a good Justice League, darker, more grittier style. I mean, in this case, Batman's... in this series is, Batman's general rule was never kill anybody. But in this last movie we saw, Batman versus Superman, he mopped the floor with these guys and didn't even slow down.
Yeah, he was kicking all kinds of tail. That's one reason I did like that version of Batman.
Yeah, it was so much different than what you're accustomed to. You watch the animated series and you're like, okay, and then you've seen all the Tim Burtons and the George Clooney's and the Val Kilmers, and you're like, to me, they got the original Michael Keaton version was great. It was the darker version, not like grim evil, but darker. It wasn't so much humor in it. And then they started getting, to me, too cartoony is the word I like to use.
Yeah.
I mean, they were bigger, better, bolder.
Yeah.
But it started getting to where it was just too cartoony, and I was losing my interest in
Yeah.
it. I want to see
It
Mr.
felt
Freeze.
like, yeah, I would like to see Mr. Freeze too.
I want to see Freeze come in there and be like the Victor Freeze in the animated series. He's still kind of an anti-hero, but I mean, he has his own purpose. We know why he exists. We know why he does things. But he
Yeah.
was cold, literally, not to use the pun, cold-hearted. But but when you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, the body armor looked cool, but the character was just not there for me. So
I honestly, somebody pointed this out, and much I used to love that movie. Now I kind of went back and saw, like, okay, the movie kind of stupid, but still kind of fun. And then something happened in the movie. Somebody pointed it out in a video review. They said he was like $1 billion diamonds, but he was using them to power his suit instead of using it to actually get the money to save his wife.
Exactly. He's freezing everybody. Why? What's the point of that? So it's little stuff like that so in that series they were trying to make it big and popular, but it just they lost steam. The directors changed, your Batman's changed, your style of the movies changed, and again the goal they got lost until Batman Begins. And
Batman Begins brought it back,
and a whole new change. I mean, it went back to the darker style. Not as much humor, nitty gritty, and I loved it. So
I think what Batman Begins did for superhero movies, modernized it. Because even though we've had several superhero movies come out before that, but nothing felt as modernized, in my opinion, as Batman Begins. Like the whole Dark Knight series felt modernized.
Yeah, it was like a very different.
Could happen.
Yeah, it was way better filmography wise, visual effects wise. It was more practical. We lost the cartoonishness. We got down to nitty gritty. Like, what if this were a real guy who went through these situations? And even as the Batman in that style, he started out in the learning, going around doing these things. We learned about the League of Shadows. Ra's al Ghul, was a little bit better in that one than some of the other cartoonish versions I've seen. So it was very good that they did it in that style, and again kicked it back in gear. And as you see, the DC movies have continued on with that. You still keep that same darkness / darker style movie, but it's more practical, more believable. And just like watching Suicide Squad. They threw a lot of stuff at you real quick to get you established with your characters. I wish they would have gotten into the characters a little bit more. Enchantress being,
I think
where'd she come from? Because that's actually one of those obscure characters that they bring in to throw in a kink in the works. Interesting.
I mean, she was cool, but they didn't give enough. They didn't give enough about her character.
No, they didn't bring a lot, and they didn't bring out in what type of character she was. You just got a very light touch. Deadshot, you don't see a lot about Deadshot. I mean, most of the characters in the Suicide Squad are obscure to anybody. I mean, really, except for Harley Quinn. Everybody knows Harley Quinn, Joker, but he's not really part of the Suicide Squad at this point. I mean, I know he comes in later in the series, but just in this establishment, he wasn't there. So, I mean, I hope to see more in another movie with the same characters as they expand on to the Suicide Squads, if they do carry on with them. I would like to see some more and bring out some more of those characters that the Suicide Squad is going to bring out more of those obscure characters that a lot of people are not familiar with.
Yeah.
So with that, I hope they do that.
All right. So we've talked about the live action films, and DC's trying to catch up, but we've established that Marvel has taken the film industry by storm when it comes to that animated films.
Absolutely.
I think DC pretty much wipes the floor with the animated films. They own it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of their animated series, and see with the animated series, they keep it dark, they keep it real, and I haven't seen a lot of the newer ones yet. I'm kind of behind on my viewing, but from what I've seen, I like their animated series is a lot better right now than some of again, Marvel being a little more in this case lighthearted, cartoony.
Oh, I mean like the animated films, like Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
Exactly.
The Dark The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Under the Red Hood. I think they're animated films. Like, have you seen the 2009 Wonder Woman film that came out with?
I've seen hit and miss on a lot of their animated series. I've got a backlog of probably about 10 movies to catch up on within the DC realm, like the Batman series. My son is actually ahead of me.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't really dove too much into the animated, but what I have seen of them, I like their style a lot better. I like their storytelling a lot better. I have definitely enjoyed the few that I have seen. So once I catch up on that, I can give you a little bit better. But I think, at least in that realm, I am definitely going to agree with you from what I've seen that DC does take that market and they use it and they run with it.
I was doing a top 10 list, and I was trying my best to come up with a top 10 like Marvel animated movies, and I couldn't even think of more than 5. The only animated movies that really stand out in my mind, but from Marvel, is what was it, Ultimate Avengers and Ultimate Avengers 2.
I've seen some of those. There was also I like the Punisher, so I caught one of the Punisher, Black Widow, Shield.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of the movie right off the top of my head. I like that one. That was pretty good. Actually, that was a little bit darker than their normal series because they threw the Punisher in there, of course, and he just doesn't give a rat's butt about anybody. So it was good in that case because he went in there and took names and let it go, and you actually kind of saw what character Frank Castle is. So, but again, DC, I think in this case is going to take that flag and run with it.
Yeah.
Their animation, their storylines are much better in their animated series. In this case,
and now they're doing like an animated DC universe too. I think where they have a collection of, I think the New 52. I think that's where they're pulling it from. Where you know how originally in the original DC storyline is Clark and Lois Lane, in a relationship.
And they changed it out.
In the New 52, in the New 52, now it's like Clark and Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah,
and those been like the last few movies that I've seen a few of them. I thought they were all right. The last one I seen was Justice League versus Teen Titans.
No, that I want to see. That would be a very interesting.
I've seen it. I've seen it and I liked it, but I think they could have did more with it. And you watch it, I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but when you watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Well, let me do that. We'll do a review on that one too. I'll try to get that this weekend and look at it and see if we can set up for our next session to run off some of the DC animated movies.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm gonna let you know. I highly recommend you go see Justice League: Gods and Monsters. I love that one. That's literally one of my favorite ones.
Is that very similar to the alternate universe?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, yes. I want to see that. There's also a video game, if I remember correctly, based on that, and there's actually a second video game coming out based on that as well.
And having said video games, and just run into the video games, then who do you think dominates more, DC or Marvel, when it comes to the video games?
DC.
I didn't want to say it, but I think DC definitely does it, especially with everybody know what I'm going to say, the Batman Arkham series.
Exactly, that was the first thought in my head. I couldn't really honestly think of any Marvel ones off the top of my head except for the one my son was playing not too long ago. I can't even think of the name of it because it escapes me at the moment. But I really don't see that many, to me, Marvel games out there. But I mean, I see a lot of DC style games, and of course, Batman Arkham series comes right into play. Boom, right there in front of your face.
See, Marvel has a lot of games. I'll admit that. Marvel and DC, as far as like throwing games out, are about equal. But I think DC has come out. I'm just gonna say leading. DC is the Batman Arkham series, not only because it's just a great game. It has great storytelling, great gameplay. It is very memorable. Not so much I can't really think of no Marvel game off the top of my head that were like straight memorable.
That's pretty bad because I'm sitting here trying to think. I mean, I didn't get too much into video games, but I'm sitting here just thinking off the top of my head. It's like, when is the last time I really saw a Marvel game even kind of mentioned?
Yeah. I
except
mean,
for well, even in PlayStation World, let's say the Lego series,
yeah,
you see those. You know, you get the
like
Lego
yeah.
Avengers and stuff like that. And I do remember those. I've even played them a couple times with my kids and stuff. But that's the only thing I could really just sticks in my head. Other than that, nothing really jumps out at me.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could say like what's Marvel's most like most one the one the one title Marvel has is like just the most pronounced. Probably be Spider-Man, and he has a lot of games, and
Sure.
there's some they're pretty cool. But like I said, they're not memorable.
I've seen there
Like
was
I
another one
have,
with Iron Man. There was an Iron Man one that was out not too long ago too that I remember. I think it was Iron Man 3 or something like that, where it was okay, but again, nothing compared to storyline wise. There was really no story. It was just basically mind numbing. Fly around, blow this up, have a nice day. There was no thought process into it. Whereas you
yeah.
get
I
into the
remember,
Arkham, you have to solve. You have to really get into them and get into
and
the
like I
game
said,
and
it
feel that
was.
character.
And that's just the one thing about that series. It was great graphics, great gameplay, great stories, great characters. I mean, everything. I mean, it had its flaws here and there, but it was still just like if I could recommend that series to anybody, like I can't think of any other superhero series in any medium of games where I was like, okay, you need to play that series. The only other series I say is which I liked. I still do like them. There was a series back in the day called X-Men Legends,
Yes.
where you got to play with all the X-Men as a team, and you got to make your own teams and stuff. Like that was like that right there, along with the sequel. That probably was like one of the most memorable that Marvel has had,
And there was
as well
Legends
as
and Legends 2 was a Rise of
uh-huh,
the Apocalypse, I think.
yeah,
Which would have
yeah,
been great if
and
they brought that back for the movie that just
yeah,
came out, or at least revised the game and brought it back out. But
or even made a third game. They got the content for it.
heck yeah,
And the same thing with Marvel Ultimate Alliance. That's another series Marvel does kind of got under his belt. That's like probably the only what I'm saying, just as pronounced equal, but they never followed it up with a third game. And I think that's Marvel's way. If they're going to do that, that's Marvel's way of actually making a great story, great characters, fun. It was fun, especially when you had multiple people.
well,
But
they also, I think Marvel, again, as we're talking darker style, like looking at the Arkham series, it's grimmer, darker. Whereas, for example, Marvel went in there with their was it the little game Disney Infinity, and they
yeah,
brought in
yes,
all those characters again, rehashing not only just the comic Marvel universe, but all the other little universes that they own now. Disney,
yeah,
all powerful, all knowing, but they brought those characters in there, and they brought some really cool characters. I mean, I think I saw Doctor Doom one in there, and I just wanted to collect the little characters. I don't care about
yeah,
the game,
yes,
but they again were comparing the two together. You see the more lighthearted, more fun, adventurous games. Iron Man, all Black Widow, all your characters are showing up in that Infinity series. They're not really trying to make them graphically, a monster game in there. They're just
yes,
using them to carry on the stories and get the kids to love the characters and bring
yes,
them into that world. And I say Marvel again, at least in this case, likes to bring those characters, the lightheartedness in there, and that's what a lot of people are attaching to. But the more hardcore comics, the more graphic novel type people like the DC universe for that, because they can go, oh yeah, he's going to just rip them apart. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And in the Marvel world, it's like, oh
yes.
look, he just blew up that tank, whoopie doo, and just keep on going. So
Yeah, I know that Marvel had an online game, DC had an online game, and it's called DC Universe Online. I'm not sure about what Marvel was called, but I hear more people. I hear more and see more about DC Universe Online than I do about the Marvel. I'm not sure if it because it sucks or I'm just around,
well, it depends on what
wrong
platform it
crowd.
runs on too. I mean, if you're talking computer gaming or console gaming, where that may
I've played,
fall into play.
I played DC Universe on the PlayStation 3, And it's a fun game. I'm not one of those like online players like that, but it's a fun game. And I played it also on the PC. If I get a chance, I will try to look up the Marvel one and kind of make a comparison between the two. But as far as the Marvel, I haven't heard anything on that one. I seen it them 2 or 3 times, and I ain't heard nobody say anything about it.
I've actually never even heard anything, to be honest. I knew there was a DC world, but I really didn't know there was a Marvel version out there. I was just trying to see if I could find it real quick while we were talking and see what they called it.
But might be Marvel. I don't know.
I'm not even seeing. I see the Infinity series and several other games we were talking about earlier, but I don't really see anything unless it's called Marvel Heroes.
Nah,
yeah, Marvel Heroes. Marvel Heroes MMO. I think that's
okay.
Yeah, so they're adding some extra characters to that. So again, I really had no idea that didn't even exist. So very interesting. I may have to explore that and see what they got on there.
I know DC came out with their own version of like Ultimate Avengers, except it was the Justice League characters, and it was really good. The only fault I kind of had with it, the only 2 problems I had with it was, you can only play the 2 characters at a time, and then half the levels, the characters are already picked for you.
Yeah, see, I really like where, you should be able to walk in there and get a pool of characters. A good 10, 15 characters right off the bat. You should be able to jump in and then make them either grow or get access to other characters.
I mean, like you said, you got a decent roster of characters, but like certain levels, like the first level that you played, you always play as Batman or Superman. And when you start the game over again, that level is already pre-established for you to play those 2 characters. And then like the other half of the levels, they'll be like, okay, you can pick whoever you want.
Okay. Yeah.
They have a pretty good roster. And only problem I might have had with the roster is they had 3 Green Lanterns. Attacks. They all did the same attacks.
Probably Hal Jordan and the rest of the guys that have played the Green Lantern in their series that we know of.
Yeah, we had all 3 of those guys, but they all did the exact same attacks.
Ugh, awful. Each of them was defined by their ability to use the lantern ring, and each of them was a different style, a different character, a different attitude in some cases, if you read the actual Green Lantern series. And I think if they had rolled that into the character, at least in this case, talking about Green Lantern, that may have made a huge difference in their character play there.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the live action movies. We talked about the animated movies. We talked about the video games. And let's see. Marvel took the movies. DC take the animated movies. DC also takes the video games. So let's talk about television. First, we're going to jump into the live action television. What do you think about who do you think is running lead more on this one? And me personally, I'm starting to say, okay, it's about even.
Well, you're losing some of the Marvel series, and they're trying to expand it. You lost Agent Carter. They ceased that one. You still have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then you have, with the CW, though, you have a lot of shows. You have The Flash, you have Green Arrow, you have Legends of Tomorrow, and they even expanded their character series in that too. So you're starting to see some of your Justice League characters show up in there. You got Hawkman, Hawkwoman in there now. So as for character-wise, I think the DC on the CW, their shows, including Supergirl, now it's moved over to the CW. I think DC really kind of takes at least the majority of
like a small,
I think
a small lead.
Yeah, it's not by much, but they do have a lot of shows, and they're keeping their shows fresh. They keep adding to their shows, whereas Marvel has got the same shows, and I think Marvel's trying to expand that. But then you see like the Netflix series with Jessica Jones coming in there. Luke Cage coming out there.
Series. Yeah.
And Daredevil's out there. So you have a lot of media. So with those added, I would say we're kind of even right now. But I think Marvel's
Yeah.
kind of losing that edge a little bit because they're gonna have to come out with something new, or yeah, they're gonna have to bring out something newer than what they have. I mean, they're bringing out some, who's January? I don't know who's Luke Cage again. Characters that we have not seen on any screen or any of the movies. These are what would be considered
they're making a
obscure.
president. Yeah.
Daredevil,
totally
we've seen 2 movies with Daredevil, so I mean he's out there. But I would say right now DC has a very slight edge at the moment on their TV series, live action TV series. Although I'd like to see.
I think, yeah. Oh, what do you think about it? Whose strategy is working more? You have DC. I mean, DC. Go DC. You have Marvel, who's making their television shows, but they're incorporating it with cinematic universe with the movies.
Exactly.
But then you have DC, who they're doing that, like all their shows are doing their own little thing.
Exactly. I mean, they're crossing over on their own series, though. If you've watched, you've seen the Flash crossover with Green Lantern, and you've seen the Flash crossover with Supergirl. This last season. So in their own little DC TV universe, they're crossing over, and I think that will help them eventually. Because we've seen also some of the characters from DC Universe, not DC Universe, from Green Arrow crossover into the Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow, yeah. And,
so we've already seen
that show Constantine. Constantine was a part of that too.
I love Constantine.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that Constantine was a lot better series. I mean, I did enjoy the movie. Yeah. But the TV series allowed to expand more on that character, and you got more background on the character.
Yeah.
And it was definitely when you get a chance to catch up on it, I think it's on Netflix right now. It may not be there for much longer, but I did enjoy that series. But I like the fact that they are crossing over in their own TV verse. They're not hitting the movies. Yeah. They're not bouncing anywhere in the movie world. In fact, actually, the characters that play in the Flash on the TV series, CW series, is not going to be the same character you see in the DC movies.
Yes.
Cyborg is not the same character. They're not. The people are entirely different. And they're trying to keep those two worlds separated, with the core character the same, but the actors and
a bit of the storyline might be changed.
The storyline will probably change slightly. I mean, if you read the comics, you know how the characters originate, but for TV they indulge a little bit here and there. So we'll see. But I do like the fact that they are crossing over in their little worlds. Marvel is crossing the line between TV and movies. Again, they're looking to bring they're bringing that audience into their whole, what they call the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, you see Agent Coulson was in the movies, you see Agent Coulson, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and you can relate to that character and they keep the storylines tied together. I think that works for Marvel, and it brings their people in to watch the movies because you want to see, what happened, because when you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, when Hydra made their big move and everything, you saw that related into the series.
Yes.
Whereas we watched the DC shows on CW and Netflix, and we don't see any of that crossover stuff. I mean, they're just now starting their storylines of getting the Justice League forming, but we've actually seen the Justice League, kind of start forming up. And I was trying to remember which one of the series they had a brief introduction to the Justice League, but it was actually before it was JLA. It was I can't remember the organization they were before the Justice League, but they had the original Star Spangled Banner Man and some of the other obscure characters, but they had all those folks mentioned in there, and of course you saw the Hawkman armor and stuff that was in there.
Was it like Justice Friends of America or something like that?
I think it was something very similar to that, but you saw a very brief introduction to that in that series, knowing what the future is going to be bringing. You just saw the old school guard when they were back in the 1950s and 40s.
Yeah.
And not the 1960s and 70s, and now currently in the 2000s where we see a more updated Justice League. So I think DC takes the lead.
I think they're doing a pretty good job.
I think the DC in this case is going to take at least the lead so far in their live action TV series.
Yeah, and this even includes the older ones because both of them, both companies have been actually having their own series from even back in the day, The Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
The Flash, Wonder Woman, Lois and Clark, Smallville. You know, they've all had their you know what I'm saying? They've all had they've been keeping up. I'll give it to them. They have been keeping up.
Yeah, they put a lot
So
of good series out
I'm
there.
still yeah. I'm still torn between. I'm still saying they're about even. Even though I'm agreeing with you that DC is a bit higher.
Yeah, they have definitely had a
So
lot
as
more
far as the live
series.
action, yeah. And so as far as the live action series go, we'll just go ahead and just mark that off for DC. So what about the animated television shows? Batman the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series, X-Men the animated series, Superman the animated series. You know,
There is a
what do you think about?
lot of animated TV series. I can't even tell you how many I watched at one given time. uh, I have
Again, I'm kind of torn.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm kind of in between on that one because I've watched many series as a kid, as an adult, and
Mm-hmm.
and even as of late, they're still producing a lot of good series. I would say they're probably going to be about even Steven at this point right now, unless they throw something totally out there. Either one decides to throw some obscure character and bring it to life. Right now, I think they're all sticking to their core characters. I mean, most of what you see now is Avengers or JLA or Batman or Spider-Man solo.
Especially Batman. Batman and Spider-Man, I think, are actually like the most long running.
Those are the two forerunners in the animated series. I can go back at least 6 or 7 versions in my head of both series, Spider-Man in any form or fashion, and Batman in any form or fashion. So I'm definitely going to say they're going to be pretty well even in this match.
So in terms of popularity, who do you think is going to be more popular, Spider-Man or Batman? Just asking.
I'm more of a Batman fan, and I think more people relate to the Batman as the badass, come out of the shadows, take you out, and get rid of you. Where they see Spider-Man as the more, as he is in the comics, a lighthearted and smart ass. They kind of can relate to him, but this, I think most people will. I think more people would probably like the Batman versus the Spider-Man. Although I do like the live act or the movie versions prior to the last two, where Tobey Maguire actually played Spider-Man. First one was great. Second one was great. Third one should have never been made because that was just a joke. I mean, I love the Green Goblin when he came to life, and William Dafoe came in there and started doing that cackling. I got goosebumps. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about hearing that as he comes in. Dr.
He definitely played that.
Oh man, he played him very well, and I was like, "Wow, this is awesome." And then we came in with the second episode. We had Doc Ock, who was kind of a victim of tragedy here. He wasn't really kind of trying to be a bad guy, but he wasn't really being a good guy either. And when Doc Ock showed up, and you started hearing him walk with those robotic arms, and you felt them hit the ground in the theater, and you're like, "Whoa, here he comes." And how it was.
I think another thing that made him such a pronounced, I guess you could say, antagonist, well, just how versatile he was, because he seemed to be able to, wherever Spider-Man could fight on, he could fight on.
Yeah,
Spider-Man could walk up walls. He was on the walls too.
Exactly. His arms had an artificial intelligence in them, and that was helping him compensate for. I mean, he was already a smart guy anyway. He may not have been battle hardened as Spider-Man has been in the past, but I mean, he nailed him to the wall. I mean, literally several times in that series, and it was great, and loved it, and it was awesome. Bringing those characters like that to life, it was amazing. But the third movie,
Alfred Molina did play a great job.
Oh yes, I was very pleased. Yeah. That third movie, no, that should never been made.
It was one of those movies where they had good plots in it, but they tried to fit them all together. If those plots would have been like 3 separate movies, then it would have worked.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
those could have been 3.
Yeah, Sandman would have been a great by himself, or Venom by himself. But they tried to throw so many characters in there. And then when they re-imaged the series and got rid of Tobey Maguire and it went to a whole new ball game, I was kind of borderline.
Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, and I'm like, I like the fact that they had the Sinister Six kind of highlighted in there in the background, and I would love to see that same character, same style of movie with the Sinister Six in it. But I'm not sure how they're going to do this. Third iteration of the new guy. I just don't know how it's going to be.
He played a really good role. He played pretty cool in Civil War. I got to give it to him.
Yeah, and he was good in there. I'm not sure how they're going to pull off. I think the primary bad guy in this next series is going to be the Vulture starting, which they might actually try to bring in the Sinister Six, which I think eventually they will. Probably not in the first movie, but will again introduce a few characters like they were doing in the second series of the movies with Andrew Garfield, and we might see because they introduced the Rhino, but you saw kind of in the background you saw Doc Ock's arms. You saw the they brought in the Rhino armor. You saw the Vulture wings. You didn't see.
They definitely tried. They tried too much with that one. I did like it. I liked the potential that it had because I liked a character of Electro.
Yeah, Electro would have been great.
That was like on his own.
Yeah, without having too many people floating in there and adding to it. Obscure characters. Again, Mysterio. Bring him in. He would have been a great character. In fact, I wish they would bring him in the forthcoming movies because he was part of the Sinister Six at one time. So,
I would love for them to bring in the Shocker. Shocker is literally one of my favorite characters.
Actually, I believe I have read something that he is actually supposed to be in this next movie. It's actually supposed to be Shocker and Vulture, I believe, in the next movie. Don't 100% quote me, but I read a lot of stuff every day. But I do remember them talking about they actually have a person cast for it, and they had some preliminary costume footage of the Shocker as well. So that's out there. I believe I was on IO9 not too far long ago. So you may get your wish.
Okay. I hope
get your wish.
He's one of my favorite characters. He's definitely one of my favorite
characters. Would be another good one. Carnage would be another good one too.
This is what I wish they would have did with the Tobey Maguire series. That's the third movie. Okay, if he had to fight Sandman and had to fight the Goblin, okay, fine. I could have dealt with that. Just tied it right up the story better. If they were going to introduce the Venom aspect, fine. But do like they did with the show. At the end of the movie, that's when he loses his Venom suit. And then like how Eddie Brock got it in the movie, that should have been like the little scene at the end of that movie to set up for a fourth movie.
Well, and the original Venom came from Secret Wars. If you've ever read that series, where Spider-Man where a character named Beyonder comes in, he takes all the world's heroes, all the world's villains, puts them on a world called Battle World, and then they go at each other. And Spider-Man gets his suit all tore up, and he notices one of the other characters got his suit repaired, and he goes, "Oh, well, let me see what happens. What can I do?" And he goes in there, and it's all this alien technology around, and he ends up getting the suit, but what he didn't know at that time was the suit was a symbiote.
Yeah.
He had the web shooters that were built in, because it was the symbiote shooting itself out. And eventually, after Secret Wars ended and he came back to Earth, and then he started having the problems of noticing, his alter ego starting to show up and starting to do bad things, that Reed Richards actually realized, hey, there's some kind of creature on him, and the only way we're going to get him off, and they finally realized that the vibrations, which you saw in the third movie, is how he got him off. Well, that's what he figured out, and he was able to pull Venom off of Peter Parker and contain it. And that's where the symbiote got the vengeance thing. That's why, Venom kind of went after him, because he was pissed off. He was happy, and then he made him go away. So, the movies have some ill representation. I mean, kind of the same thing happened, but in a much different order and a little bit different way. And I think they could have, Secret Wars would have been the whole movie itself.
I could have went behind the whole Venom aspect of how he got there, because I didn't like how Venom got there. I could have got behind it if, say, he did fall down in a meteor and crash somewhere, and then that corporation, I can't remember what it's called,
Oscorp.
Yeah, if Oscorp had got a hold of that meteor and experimented on it.
Yeah, and that would have been great to see that happen.
Yeah, that would have made a lot more sense. So, okay, So as far as in media, we've kind of established, DC is in the lead in certain areas, even though Marvel seems to be more prevalent in the areas that it is dominating in.
Yeah, they're looking for their target audience, and that's the younger crowd that's out there. The little kids, the teenagers, and the younger adults is where they're hitting it. I mean, granted, I'm 42 years old, so I've been around comics a long time. I'm seeing, I'm happy that I'm seeing these characters show up, but as an adult, you kind of sway more to the butt kicking, the darker, gritty stuff, and you kind of fall like, let's go to the DC world for a little while and enjoy some violence. We'll still come back to the Marvel world, but Marvel's funny. It's great. Yeah. They have good stories, but I think a lot of people are swaying towards the DC world. But again, DC right now is not putting out what I think they could. They're running a lot longer into production schedules and trying to get their stuff together, and they're very slow in developing their storylines for their series in Justice League. I mean, a lot of people are really wanting it right now. I want my Justice League right now, but they're just taking their time and doing it.
And it seems like Marvel's to the point now where they're putting out like 2 or 3 movies a year.
At least I think their schedule is at least 3 movies for the next 5 years. So
yeah, they're doing it.
And they're pushing it. They got the director staff, they got the continuity, and I think that's what helps them save some money too, because they're simultaneously filming other things at the same time because they're actually tied in together. So it's saving them some coin in production as well. Where DC right now is still individual story. Now we're starting to look for the Justice League to come out in 2 years. For lucky.
Yeah, I think I've looked at their little roster of movies that got coming out. I think they do need to put out more.
They do. They need to really catch up on their movies, even if they're doing more side stories. Like, knock out. I think they're actually supposed to have Cyborg and Flash crossover in the same movie. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's pretty much done and just waiting to be post production and released, and that looks good. That looks phenomenal from what I've seen so far. So, but they need to at least get that 2 to 3 movies. They need to get them out. They need to get them out there. They need to get that audience. They need to capture that audience and do it. But that's where Marvel is really kicking their butt right now.
I do think they need to focus on more characters too, because for the characters that they have established so far, they got movies for. But all the other characters that they have, Green Lantern, which I'm not sure if you like. I don't know if you like that Green Lantern movie they had.
No, not too thrilled.
I didn't like it. I wasn't too thrilled. One thing I did like about it was I did like the suit. Even though it was like heavily CGI, I was like, well, they're using this type of energy power. It would make sense for the suit to kind of exude that same energy.
Well, that's what happened in the comic series. The suit was from the Ring. It was one and the same. It was his protection and barrier. So in that case, it was good. I like the fact that they were a little creative in some of the stuff that he created and got in there, but it just did not grip me. It just did not bring me into the movie. I bought a Green Lantern shirt. I was ready for it, and I felt very shortchanged after that movie. So
I think it had to do a lot with the story, some of the acting, and like that movie was kind of more comedic, and I think that was one of the things that kind of brought it down too.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds is great,
as well as the over.
Not Hal Jordan.
Yeah, he nailed it. But I also think that they did an overuse of CGI. They had so much CGI, and a lot of it felt unnecessary.
Yeah, when you look at movies like, say, George Lucas again, at the time he was creating things, he did the best what he could, but he envisioned more. And when he made episode 1, 2, and 3, CGI was a prominent factor, and that to me was what took away from the movies that made them cartoony, and it just made me mad. You could have a great story, but they just over-cartooned everything, and it just drove me away from that series. I cannot really even watch episode 1, 2, and 3. If they had used it more appropriately, like, say, I need 1,000 robot soldiers, great. It's not practical to build them, okay. When you look at
everything,
J.J. Abrams, who just made the episode 7, what was his goal? He went all practical unless absolutely unnecessary, and then he did CGI. And that, again, that's what brought that movie in. These characters were real. They were there. You could touch them. And the thing is, that's with movies. practical is expensive, but when you're looking at the quality of a movie and you really want to bring it out, practical is the way to go. Limit your CGI. You don't want to make it cartoony. It's just not good for you. It draws the audience away. I mean, little kids will love it, but that core audience who's going to go see that movie more than one time is going to be looking for the practical, hardcore effects, and that's what they're looking for. So.
All right then. Well, we've covered some of the basics. Well, as far as DC versus Marvel in medium when it comes to the television, movies, and video games. We haven't talked about any of the characters or any of the arcs, but I would love for you to join me again, where we do actually get a chance to compare characters, compare storylines, compare powers, superhero teams, supervillain teams, things like that.
The Legion of Doom. Sounds like a plan? I would love to. I've had a blast so far. Now I was just looking at, we were talking about how many movies a year they're going to pump out for DC. We're looking at, right now, I see Wonder Woman and Justice League in 2017, Flash and Aquaman in 2018. So they're dumping out 2 movies right there a year. We'll see Shazam, which will be an interesting movie. Again, obscure character, unless you were a kid back then in my time frame, because I remember Shazam as a live TV series. Justice League, the second part in 2019. So we have a lot of movies hitting. Again, your core Justice League stuff is coming out with an obscurity with Shazam. So they're trying to play catch up. But I think if I looked at the Marvel, we'd probably see 3 movies a year from now till 2020. So but we'll catch up on that on one of our other discussions.
Trying to catch up.
DC's got a lot to do. We definitely.
Yes, they absolutely do. But all of y'all DC fans out there, the movies are coming. They are definitely coming. I did have a blast with you on this discussion. I definitely want to get back up with you. And guys, again, this is Ken Phillips. He's just a totally awesome guy. Any information about where anybody could reach you on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, LinkedIn, go ahead and just let them know.
Well, I would have to get them all together because I don't really use that social media as much right now. So I will throw that on our next movie, our next video that we do, and we'll have some information and get a hold of me that way.
Okay, sweet. I can definitely dig that. And like I said before, definitely appreciate you. Next time we'll probably try to bring in Lakeisha or Zach. They're familiar with the channel. They shot videos with me on this channel. But I guess we'll just go ahead and end it here. And guys, once again, thank you for joining us. This is me, Narik Chase. This is Ken Phillips. Join us again for another Break of the Base, guys.
Take it easy, everybody.
All right, then.